Millions worship their favorite music icons every day, but somewhere inside those crowds is someone who isn't cheering, someone who believes that their idol belongs to them. When admiration turns into obsession, and obsession turns into violence, fame becomes a death sentence. We're counting down 10 music icons murdered by their own obsessed fans and stalkers. John Lennon, killed by obsessed fan Mark David Chapman. December 8, 1980, New York City. A quiet Monday night, about to become one of the darkest moments in music history. He had been standing there for hours. Mark David Chapman, a man who once called himself a devoted fan of John Lennon, now shaking, whispering to himself, clutching a book he believed held the truth. To the outside world, he looked like just another admirer, waiting for an autograph.
I'm here to meet John Lennon.
But inside, Chapman had already decided John Lennon needed to die. Not because he knew him, but because he worshipped him, and then convinced himself he had been betrayed. That evening, John Lennon walked past Chapman with a smile. He signed an album for him, a simple act of kindness. The last autograph he would ever give.
Thanks, John. You're welcome.
Hours later, John returned home with Yoko Ono, and Chapman was still there, still staring, still trembling, still waiting for his moment. As Lennon walked toward the entrance, Chapman stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, and then 5 gunshots. One of the most influential artists of all time collapsed instantly. The doorman wrestled Chapman to the ground. He didn't run, he didn't fight. He simply opened his book, sat on the sidewalk, and waited to be arrested, reading The Catcher in the Rye as if this was all part of some twisted personal destiny. News spread across the world within minutes. Crowds gathered, people screamed, cried, and collapsed in disbelief. A generation's voice was silenced, not by an enemy, not by a criminal gang, but by an obsessed fan who believed the music idol he once adored no longer deserved to live. Chapman later said, "If I can't be somebody, I can kill somebody who is." And this was only the beginning. Number 2 is a case even more violent, one that happened live on stage. Christina Grimmie, the stalker who crossed the line. 22 years old, a rising star from New Jersey, beloved on The Voice. Known for her kindness, her humility, and a voice that felt heaven-sent. But somewhere in her growing fan base, one man was watching her differently. His name was Kevin James Loibl. On the outside, he looked like just another fan, but inside his head, he had built an entire fantasy. One where Christina wasn't just his idol, she was his future. Loibl became obsessed. He watched every live stream, every video. He studied her voice, her smile, her personality. Like someone studying a person they already believed they owned. June 11th, 2016. Plaza Live, Orlando. Christina just finished an amazing show. Fans were lining up for hugs, selfies, and autographs. The most wholesome, safest moment of the night. And then he walked in. Kevin Loibl, head down, black jacket, 2 loaded 9mm, handguns hidden inside, and a hunting knife on his waistband. He stepped forward. Christina smiled at him. She opened her arms, because that's who she was. And Loibl raised his gun and fired. 3 shots at point-blank range. The room erupted into screams. Christina collapsed immediately. Her brother Marcus tackled Loibl with everything he had, but the stalker managed to turn the gun on himself and pull the trigger. Christina Grimmie was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. 22 years old, a voice with limitless potential, a life built on kindness, ended by someone who mistook obsession for love. Her death shook the entire music world. And that is the tragic, final chapter of Christina Grimmie. A moment that should have been a celebration turned into the unthinkable. But don't go anywhere, because the next story is even darker. Dimebag Darrell Pantera, killed by mentally unstable fan. December 8, 2004. A guitarist walked on stage, and seconds later, someone in the crowd opened fire. This is the final performance of Dimebag Darrell, legendary guitarist of Pantera, a man loved by millions, and targeted by one deeply disturbed fan who believed the band owed him something. His name was Nathan Gale, a former Marine, paranoid, convinced that Pantera had stolen his lyrics. Lyrics he believed were his destiny to share with the world. He didn't see Dimebag as a hero, but as a thief who needed to be punished. Damish Plant had barely started their first song. Dimebag stepped to the mic when Gale rushed the stage with a 9mm handgun. He fired immediately, 4 shots, point blank. Dimebag Darrell collapsed on stage before anyone could react. Gale continued firing into the crowd, killing 3 more people and taking a hostage, until a police officer ended the rampage with a single shot. The world of metal lost one of its brightest flames, a guitarist whose passion transformed a genre, taken by a man who mistook delusion for justice. And what happened that night wasn't an accident, but a warning of how obsession, jealousy, and mental collapse can turn a fan into a killer. Nipsey Hussle, killed in cold blood outside his own store. Nipsey wasn't just a rapper, he was an activist, a leader, a visionary who turned every dollar he earned back into his neighborhood. But on March 31st, 2019, that vision ended on the very sidewalk where he had built his dream. Nipsey stands outside his store, the Marathon Clothing, in Los Angeles, a place he built to help his own neighborhood grow. But that afternoon, someone walks toward him, a man Nipsey actually knows, Eric Holder. A petty argument happens, and within seconds, Holder pulls out a gun. Nipsey is shot multiple times, 5 in the body, and 1 final shot to the head before Holder runs away. People nearby rush to help, but Nipsey Hussle was pronounced dead shortly after reaching the hospital. The city erupts in grief. A man who spent his life lifting others was gone because of a moment of jealousy and rage. Eric Holder was arrested 2 days later and eventually convicted of first-degree murder. A man Nipsey had known for years, someone from the same neighborhood, someone who understood Nipsey's influence more than most. And that is the tragic death of Nipsey Hussle. Stay ready, because the next case we're about to uncover is even darker and far more brutal than this. Mia Zapata, murdered by a predator. 27 years old, a fiery, magnetic voice rising out of Seattle's underground punk scene, lead singer of the Gits, a band on the edge of breaking into national fame. She wasn't a mainstream superstar, but in the 90s Seattle community, she was beloved. Raw talent, soulful grit, and a personality that made everyone around her feel alive. July 7th, 1993, Capitol Hill, Seattle. Just after midnight, Mia left a friend's apartment. It was a warm summer night. Bars were closing. People were heading home. The streets were quiet, but familiar. But she wasn't alone. His name was Jesus Mesquia. Mia never spoke to him, never met him, never even saw his face. In the dark, Mesquia followed. He grabbed her, dragged her off the street, attacked her with violent force. She fought hard, but he overpowered her. He assaulted her, beat her, and murdered her. He left her body in the middle of a quiet road, walked away, and vanished into the night. Hours later, a cyclist discovered her. Police rushed in. Friends collapsed as the news spread through Seattle's music scene. A rising star gone because a predator crossed her path at the wrong time. Her murder shook the entire community, but the case went cold for 10 years, until DNA technology finally advanced far enough to expose the killer who thought he escaped. Jesus Mesquia was arrested, convicted, and sentenced a decade after he took her life. Stay ready, because in the next case, this man receives a death note while performing on stage. Chalino Sánchez, the death note. Chalino Sánchez, the voice of the streets, a man whose songs weren't fantasies, but stories taken straight from real criminals, real violence, and the brutal world he grew up in. In Los Angeles, he discovered narcogrados, not glamorous love songs, not radio pop, but raw, dangerous ballads about outlaws, cartel bosses, fugitives, songs paid for by the people he sang about. Fans loved it. his fame exploded. But with every song he wrote, new enemies were created. Because in Chalino's world, telling the wrong story could get you killed. May 10th, 1992. Coachella, California. The venue was packed, the crowd screaming his name. Mid-performance, someone handed Chalino a folded note. It looked harmless. A fan request, maybe a dedication, but when he opened it, his face changed instantly. The footage shows everything. A small flinch, a tight breath, sudden seriousness. It wasn't fan mail, it was a death threat, but Chalino didn't stop. He didn't leave. He kept singing like a man who had lived with danger so long, it no longer frightened him. After the show, near midnight, Chalino left in a small convoy with his brother and friends. Then, flashing lights behind them, a car that looked like an unmarked police vehicle. Men stepped out wearing uniforms. They told Chalino he needed to come with them. He didn't argue, he simply nodded and went. Chalino Sánchez was found in a ditch, shot twice in the back of the head, execution style. A message, not a murder. Just 31 years old. His death shook millions. Some say it was cartel revenge. Others say it was old rivals from Sinaloa. But most believe the truth was written on that note he received on stage, the note that told him his time had come. Chalino's songs made him a legend, but they also signed his death warrant. And if you think this one is haunting, the next case is even more unsettling. PnB Rock, killed over a necklace. PnB Rock was known for his melodic, flow-smooth hooks, raw honesty, a rising star who turned struggle into success. But on September 12, 2022, a simple lunch stop in Los Angeles turned into one of hip-hop's most senseless killings. PnB Rock walked in with his girlfriend. Looking relaxed, just another afternoon. They ordered food, sat down, nothing unusual. But outside, someone was already watching. A father and his teenage son, driving around, hunting for victims, wearing jewelry. Predators, searching for opportunity. And when they saw PnB's location posted online and the chain he wore, they decided to strike. The teenager stormed into Roscoe's with a gun, no warning. He demanded the chain. PnB resisted and the gunman opened fire almost instantly. Shots echoed through the restaurant. Customers dove to the floor. Tables flipped over. PnB collapsed, bleeding heavily, unable to move. While he lay dying on the floor, the shooter ripped the jewelry off his neck, cold, mechanical. Then he ran out to the getaway car, where his father waited. PnB was rushed to the hospital, but the wounds were too severe. He was pronounced dead shortly after. A life built from hardship ended in seconds over a necklace. Investigators quickly identified the suspects, a 17-year-old shooter, his father who planned the robbery, and his stepmother who helped hide the weapon. Family crime, organized, intentional, tragic. PnB Rock left behind hits millions of fans, and a daughter who will grow up without her father. His death became another painful reminder of how envy, desperation, and social media can turn a normal meal into a deadly setup. Tupac Shakur, murdered in a drive-by ambush. Tupac Shakur, 25 years old, a legend before he was even old enough to call himself one. Poet, actor, activist, rapper, a voice that spoke for the broken, the unheard, the angry, and the lost. But behind the fame, behind the music, behind the revolution he was building, Tupac lived every day knowing someone wanted him dead. He had become the face of a cultural war he never fully asked for. September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas, Nevada. Tupac arrived with Suge Knight to watch a Mike Tyson fight. Crowds surrounded him. Cameras flashed. This was supposed to be a celebration. One of those nights where legends walk like kings. But inside the MGM Grand, a violent moment changed the entire atmosphere. Tupac and his crew attacked a man named Orlando Anderson, a known Southside Crip in the lobby. Security footage captured everything. It took less than a minute. But the retaliation it triggered would echo for decades. Later that night, Tupac and Suge left in a black BMW, heading to a nightclub. They stopped at a red light on East Flamingo Road, music playing, windows down. Tupac laughing with fans from the backseat of a car next to them. And then, a white Cadillac rolled up on the passenger side. A hand came out the window. No words, no warning. Just gunfire. 13 rounds. Tupac was hit 4 times. Chest, arm, thigh, lung. Sugi tried to speed away, but it was too late. The streets filled with sirens, smoke, and chaos. 6 days later, September 13th, 1996, Tupac Shakur was pronounced dead. 25 years old. His murder became one of the most famous unsolved cases in American history. Some blamed gangs, some blamed rivals, some blamed the music industry itself. And others believed Tupac had so many enemies that no single person could be responsible. The Notorious B.I.G. murdered in the shadow of fame. Christopher Wallace, 24 years old. A towering figure in hip-hop both in presence and influence. His voice was unmistakable. His lyrics cinematic, vivid, and brutally honest. In the mid-90s, Biggie wasn't just a rapper, he was the face of East Coast dominance. Fame followed him everywhere. So did tension. So did eyes that watched a little too closely. By 1997, the East Coast-West Coast feud had turned poisonous. Tupac was already gone. Rumors, blame, and paranoia filled the air. Biggie tried to step back from the chaos, focusing on music, business, and family. But fame doesn't let go easily. Wherever he went, crowds formed. Fans reached out. And somewhere in those crowds, not everyone came to celebrate. March 9th, 1997, Los Angeles. A Vibe magazine party had just ended. Biggie rode in the back seat of a black SUV, leaving the venue late at night. Traffic slowed at a red light. Then, a dark sedan pulled up beside him. The window rolled down. A gun emerged. 6 shots rang out. The car vanished into the night. In less than a minute, it was over. Biggie was rushed to the hospital, but his wounds were fatal. At just 24 years old, one of hip-hop's greatest voices was silenced. No arrests followed, no convictions, only theories. Some pointed to gang retaliation. Others blamed corrupt ties between the industry and the streets. And some believed the killer was someone who knew exactly where Biggie would be sewn, watching his movements, waiting patiently for the perfect moment. Decades later, the Notorious B.I.G.'s murder remains officially unsolved. A legend frozen in time. A voice that still dominates playlists worldwide. His death became a symbol of how fame can magnify danger, how obsession, rivalry, and hatred can blur together until violence feels inevitable. Because when you reach the top, you don't just gain fans, you gain shadows. And sometimes, those shadows pull the trigger. From rising stars to global legends, each one was taken not by strangers, but by someone who claimed to be a fan. Obsession, delusion, jealousy, a deadly cocktail that continues to haunt the music world. But this isn't where the darkness ends. If you want to see how deep this world of obsession really goes, stay with us. More cases are coming. More truths will be uncovered. And more nightmares will be revealed. This is the Dark Case Files, where the spotlight ends and the shadows begin.